The Long Walk Home by Munoveska. Summary. It started with a smile thrown innocently across the classroom. One moment stone from hundreds spent amongst textbooks and food and gossips of reality TV. One precious gesture said between themselves that nobody else in the world would be privy to. Maybe today would be 2000s more. Chapter 1. The Long Walk Home. For 15 minutes after the final bell of the day, Servant had huddled himself closely to the one oak at the far left of the school gardens, knees bunched to his chest, eyes glimmering. Here, surrounded by the foliage, the other students might mistake the silhouette of its auburn curls for simply another mid-autumn shrub. Survey grinned up from his outstretched palm. He grinned back at her, thankful, and waited. Apple in hand, Jonathan swept through the doors. They had agreed to meet after the last bells. When now the other students had trickled out the front gates and were a safe enough distance away that they could walk home together. Standing in that orange glow just before twilight, Jonathan turned his head, searching. The agreed upon meeting point was the still overturned rubbish bin at the base of the concrete steps. So why was Sermon not there? He continued walking, noticing only the moss laden water fountain to the right, and the parade of outdoor auburn shrubbery to the left, near that ancient oak. What had been a glowing warmth in his chest gave way to a cold, dull cramp. He drew a second apple from his pocket and pondered beneath it. It had been a risky move taking this extra one at once. Best not to waste it. Another 5 minutes passed, and still servant had yet to appear. One of the shrubs made an unusual movement, and synchronized with the rest in the white breeze. Servant poked out, and he realized. The warmth returned. It warmed, and meant he needed a racing coursing through his veins and kicking the air from his lungs. Sermon leapt to his feet, drinking in the cool air faster than he could expel it. He knew he was blushing. Knew that in approximately 10 seconds he might either faint or die from anxiety, and now Jonathan was approaching with his stunning smile and, oh God, Survey tugged hard on Servant's finger, and he asked her where and he and her were sailing over the garden, past the bushes and benches, crossing across a single lamppost. As Jonathan came to a stop at the base of the steps, chuckling. When at last Survey released her grip, Serene found himself quite at odds. Though he deserved nothing more than to spend at least 3 seconds losing himself in Jonathan's glittering eyes, he could barely manage one before shrinking upon himself. The resulting gulp when Jonathan took his hands felt like a shard of glass. That simple act was also the assurance he needed to raise his head and offer Jonathan something resembling a smile, though he was certain it had been a grimace. It was then that Jonathan took over, pacing carefully toward and past Serwyn, maintaining his delicate grasp, leading him out of the school grounds. Serwyn cast one last glance back at the satin windows and chipped stone walls, wondering how in the world such an average day could have become so distinctly unusual so quickly. Long, thin shadows inched across narrow streets as the sun transitioned across a cloudless sky, casting the world and all things beyond in a tender rosy hue. Jonathan was taking Sermon in a direction he had never travelled before, where his awnings and ornately decorated stop signs lined one side of the street they had turned onto, each advertising items for such a multitude of purposes that this could have easily doubled as a shopping mall. Only one shop was open now, and it was the one Janet appeared to be eyeing, an ice cream parlor. A service window was open, a girl leaning upon the sill with her chin resting on her palm. Jonathan faced Sherwin, eyebrows relaxing ever so slightly, the corner of his mouth tweaked into the gentlest of expressions, his head tilted towards the ice cream parlor. Sherwin gulped again, nodded. An uncomfortable moisture had made itself quite at home between their clasped hands. A direct result of the sheer terror flooding Serwyn the moment he realized that the woman at the service window was an old family friend. Before Jonathan had time to react, Serwyn had already unwound their hands and run pell-mell in the opposite direction, turned right and darted on resistance so straight. It was only when his feet stopped swapping against tarmac, and instead crunched the topmost gravel, that Serwyn came back to his senses, pleading for someone, anyone, to exorcise and breathe it free from his soul. He swiveled in place, calibrating himself. He was in a children's playground. Breathing steadily and silently berating himself for running off twice now, he perched himself on a swing, one hand on the chain, the other wiping away fresh tears. The previous 2 months could barely be summered up. Whirlwind one would be far too inaccurate a description. Typhoon, maybe, or hurricane. He started with a smile thrown instantly across the classroom. One moment stolen from hundreds spent among textbooks and football and gossips of reality TV. One previous sister said between themselves that nobody else in the world would be privy to. Maybe today would be 2000s more. No, he decided. Today would be 2000s more. With his newfound conviction, he sighed, contentedly and pushed into the backward arc of the swing, allowing it to carry him on his own momentums. For a few moments he swayed like that. Though the tears in his eyes remained, he allowed himself a subtle smile. A 10 hand stopped the swing shortly after. Jonathan held a single ice cream cone as he took the adjacent swing. Serwyn could see, even from this angle, that Jonathan wore an expression of concern. He gave him a reassuring smile, taking his hand. Relief replaced concern, and Jonathan sighed, shaking his head. In the same motion he offered the ice cream cone to Serwyn, who, instead of taking it, winked it once and nodded back in this direction. Jonathan pointed at himself with raised eyebrows. Not. And for a considerable while they were as they were, holding hands, eating ice cream, swinging together, but most importantly, enjoying each other's company. Serwyn couldn't help but steal glances at Jonathan once every so often, and Jonathan would do exactly the same at the exact same moment. Straight lights illuminated the world instead, one popping to life right above the boy's head as they left the playground behind. The rest came on ahead of them, as if beckoning them home. Moonlight peered through a white cover of cloud, to bet one half of Jonathan's face in some angelic haze, as he and Serwyn rode into one final corner. Serwyn's hounds blinked at the end of the street, the front door wide open and a dressing-gown-clad figure waiting on the porch. Serwy, who until now had settled back into Serwyn's chest, shot onto his throat. He raised himself, urging her, begging her to calm down. In his panic, he had failed to notice the glow. Jonathan placed a hand over Serwyn's chest, shooting him. But in his hand was a note, which he opened in front of Serwyn. Boyfriend? Serwyn nodded, and instinctively wrapped his arms around Jonathan's neck. It was only afterwards that he realized that doing so would put them within wrestling inch of each other, and not at exactly how they were, teetering on a moment in time unforgettable to both, and so deeply yearned for. A moment which, when stolen, would be unspeakably different to all the words they would ever share in the future that was now an inevitability. Jonathan's eyes half closed and his lips cracked into an adoring smile. The very same smile Serwyn had worn earlier that day was stamped on the tree. Serwyn mirrored Jonathan's expression, finally acknowledging his rightful place here as Jonathan's arms wound up around his waist. It had been a tiring day, an especially long afternoon. The longest walk home on Serwyn's wife, but as they closed the gap between them, bringing their lips together at last, it had been worth every single moment. End of chapter 1.